hey man, like I've got this one idea. I'm about to leave my job. I've gotten laid off. My only other option is to join the force. And my wife told me not to do it because we're about to have a child. And, people make this mistake about chasing unit counts. Um, what I've realized is I shouldn't be chasing unit count. I should really be chasing bedroom counts. And I feel like I kind of cheated a little bit.
Can you describe your Swiss Army house model? We all get the same 24 hours. So why is it that some people build so much more with them? I'm Brian Coons, and this is the Builder Nation podcast, where we talk to top performers, entrepreneurs, and visionaries to uncover the architecture of a meaningful and fulfilling life. Let's get into it. Today, my guest is Alvin, a Los Angeles-based entrepreneur, investor, and visionary with over 22 years in real estate and a $60 million portfolio spanning multifamily, single-family rentals, student housing, and development projects. He's also the creator of Soapbox, which is a children's bath product that went from an idea to an actual pitch on Shark Tank. And he is a first-generation immigrant and a self-made decamillionaire. So we have a sick guest today. I'm excited to talk to you. And I would love to start with the Shark Tank story. So how do you get on Shark Tank? Take me through that story.
All right. So let me take you back a little bit. My background is actually a product developer. I got into product development because initially I wanted to get into real estate, quickly realized I couldn't afford it. So I realized I got to get a job and quickly realized that wasn't enough. And I realized I got to build a business. And so at the time I was a graphic designer. And that's about the only job I could find after being a college dropout. I knew I was good at art. So I'm like, let me figure this out. I got a job somewhere, and that led me to design creatives. And I worked with a lot of studios, I'm here in Los Angeles, so a lot of entertainment studios, got into like dealing with all types of different products, and somehow got into product development. In my journey, I quickly realized after dealing with like the Disneys, the Hasbros, the top five, at this point I started my own business, and, I pretty much learned how to play that game, from developing ideas to launching a product to finding manufacturers, and kind of, gotten to a point where I started asking myself a question like, why don't I try to do this myself? And so that's about the time when a friend of mine from high school, we were hanging out for a little bit, and he's like, hey man, like I've got this one idea. I'm about to leave my job. I've gotten laid off. I'm about to leave my job, and my only other option is to be a police or, join the force. And my wife told me not to do it because we're about to have a child. His idea was he used to work for a facility that dealt with troubled kids. Let's just call it a foster home, foster kids. And, one kid just wouldn't take a bath. And next thing you know, all the kids didn't want to take a bath. These are kids from, 6 to about 12 years old. They were revolting. And he said that one kid just, was kind of the ringleader and said that mean old lady there, I want to take my stuffed animal with me, and she wouldn't let me go. So it's like, we can remedy that. Maybe she just doesn't want it to get wet. That's all. So my friend quickly got an idea. He got he ran to the store, got I think it was a dog chew toy, something like that. And he goes, you can bring this inside. And, he put soap on it and started, scrubbing the kid with it. And he's like, and all the kids wanted one. So that was his go-to trick. And here I am, he and I are kind of just chatting it up. And he's like, man, I told him that's a genius idea. Why don't we develop that product? So we did. First, we launched it on Kickstarter, kind of sketched it up. I don't know if you know what Kickstarter is, like basically a crowdfunding platform. It was fairly new at the time, 2013. And yeah, we raised like 50 grand in like 2 weeks. So we're like, wow, this is a viable product. And we didn't even know that Kickstarter was global. So we had orders coming from like places we never even heard of. And so So we're like, all right, look, let's go for it. So we decided to launch that. I leveraged my agency because I own my own business at that point, and just kind of developed this thing. And we entered a convention for toys, a conference for toys. We basically featured our product, and we won an innovation award for it. And next thing you know, at that convention, we inadvertently got an order from Nordstrom without even having all we had was prototypes. We're like, hey, we want an order from you. We're like, holy crap, is this real? And right behind them was Shark Tank. They're like, hey, we saw that Nordstrom just ordered from you. We saw you guys won an award. We want you guys on the show. And so that's where the Shark Tank thing began.
Wow. So like, what was that journey like? Obviously, you went on the show. Like, what happened after the show? Like, how does it work?
Well, yeah. So, so we went on and pitched. At this point, we have an order. We ran our business already. We're already at this point. When we got to Shark Tank, we had like a $2 million order or something like that. No, $200,000 order from Nordstrom. We already had our manufacturer in China because we've been kind of going back and forth with that. Got that all established, and our pitch lasted about an hour and 40 minutes, and they cut it down to 8 minutes during the show. By the way, they chopped it up, but 3 sharks gave us offers. 2 of them got together and said, we just want to buy you out. We just want to buy you out. We'll give you $1 million to walk away from this. And we said, don't you just want to be partners? And they're like, no, we have other ideas. We're like, okay, that doesn't sound right. Well, you know what? We're just going to walk away. So we decided to just walk away. So so we walked away. Next thing you know, we thought we were going to air it because their contract says, or at least producer said, if you don't take a deal, you have less than 6% chance airing on the show.
Wow.
But a week before we aired, they said, we got a call saying, hey, we're going to air your show because no one's ever walked away from $1 million buyout offer. It's that good. And so we're like, okay. So we aired, and needless to say, I think our website crashed.
Oh my God.
From the volume. And they ended up bringing it to market ourselves. I learned a lot from that, learned how to build a brand, got into all the retails. I used to work with a lot of Disney products, right? So Disney already knew who I was. And so they saw the show. They're like, hey, Alvin, we saw you on Shark Tank. That's a brilliant product. We're going to license you. We're going to cut you to the top of the line, and we're going to offer you guys Mickey and all that stuff. We're like, great.
Oh my God.
So the company kind of just blew up after that. Like, just got it to all the retailers. We were in Walmart. We were in Macy's. We were everywhere. Nordstrom. We're still in Nordstrom, I think at this point. But that's kind of where I realized, like, just to kind of tie it into real estate, I've been looking at real estate differently from then on. To me, real estate is being looked at as investment when it should really be looked at as a product.
That's exactly what I was about to ask you, is what things transfer from being a product developer into real estate specifically? What transfers over to that?
Oh, man. So my whole thesis is based on that. And I've always sort of looked at it that way in the beginning, especially in a market like Los Angeles, California, where everything's just so expensive. I think a lot of people make a mistake of looking at California in terms of opportunity, investments, and obviously a lot of the strategies that work out of state do not work here. And you know that, Brian. You know that very well. And most people understand that. But what they don't understand is when you have a product, a good product is solving a need. So you have to start with exit in mind. And this is how I approach real estate. I always start with the exit. Who is your end buyer? Who is your end user? What is the need? What is it serving? Because one thing I realized in my as a product developer and innovator is that if you develop a product that people want and need, they will be chasing you instead of you chasing them. It just makes it easier for you to, in real estate, like, if you develop the right product, you're going to get that thing filled, absorbed rather quickly than you like creating something all of a sudden you're hoping that people come to it. So that's the biggest lesson I've learned. And so now how that translate to, where I operate, Los Angeles, is, housing crisis, right? There's a huge demand. People aren't trying to solve that. But I take it even further. I started looking at like, where is the need here? Affordability is one thing, but as you and I know, like, it's really impossible to build affordable homes, especially in today's market, today's interest rate, today's cost with ICE happening. It's just almost impossible. So I started searching other things that need, I guess, need a product to be developed. Right now, as of right now, I am serving something that's close to me, which is assisted living facilities. My mom has Alzheimer. I've been her caregiver for the last three years, maybe even 5 years now. And I realized there's a bottleneck there. I couldn't find a home for her for like the last year. It took me a while, and everything's so expensive. And you find a place, it's not that great, and there's a wait list. So what does that tell me? There's demand there. There's a product waiting to happen. There's a product waiting to be developed for the masses that no one's really handling. And so automatically my head goes, well, shit, if I can't find it, why don't I just build it?
It makes so much sense. I mean, like I love starting with the problem in mind, right? Like I was working on something about a year ago with a team, and I had so many arguments with them about they would try and give me, I guess like a feature, right? Like if to think about software, right? You think about features rather than no, what are you solving, right? Like what is the problem that people have, not the modality in order to solve it. And so starting with that is, I think, one of the most valuable things. So in San Diego, for example, so many people were solving the housing crisis by building these studios in one bedrooms because the bonus ADU program allowed it, and that's what cash flowed. So that solved their cash flow need. But they didn't think about the actual problem, which is we're seeing it now. It's not just housing, it's quality housing. And so a lot of people were building them without parking, without amenities and things like that. And they realized that that's not the best way to do it. And I'm sure as like a product developer, that's like, test the thesis before you go all in on it.
Sure, absolutely. Parking is very important, like especially in LA. Like we've made those mistakes too. Like I call it my R&D phase, which is research and development. You make those mistakes and you spend a lot of money, and you're like, oh, great. Next time I know what to do. Next time I know what not to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. In my sort of, I would call it in my research and development, I guess, phase is I quickly realized that the direction for me, at least, is this whole idea of renting by the room, co-living. I feel like because of affordability, I think that's one way to solve it, is just, building, optimizing, I guess, structures, or even I don't know. I guess you can say product that would really optimize the amount of bedroom counts based on the square footage. So that's kind of my direction now. Like people make this mistake about chasing unit counts. Um, what I've realized is I shouldn't be chasing unit count. I should really be chasing bedroom counts. So
Why is
very many reasons, man. What is the highest rent I can get per square footage? Really is kind of what I'm looking at it now from a valuation standpoint, from a cash flow perspective, right? I've started diving into being able to leverage buying a property from a single family sort of financing from the beginning, but my exit would be in the commercial, which is based on net operating income. And
do
so
they
I
let
started,
you do a work on an assisted living on a NOI perspective?
well, assisted living is completely different. Let's go back to the ADU, because I know
Got it.
your audience is probably more the ADU route, right?
Yeah.
As you know, like, with ADUs, especially in LA now, like I found a way to, I mean, we're not anywhere near what San Diego was able to do. But, through SB9, I'm doing a property right now. I have one project that's, actually I have two, but one project where I'm doing SB9 where I'm turning a single family into 5 units. I'm sure that's nothing to you guys, but like for us, that's a big deal. So I would buy this using fix and flip loans, hard money lenders, whatnot, would finance me 90% to even 100% of these things now. Use that, but my exit would be 5+, which then goes into commercial underwriting, which is evaluated through its income. So I would build stuff based on, what's the maximum amount of bedrooms I could put on here, knowing that I would probably rent these things by the room, like student housing. I have student housing right now. Like I built a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom, and the square footage is only 1,560.
Wow.
And I built a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Square footage is only about, I think it's a little less than, it's almost 1,000 square foot, a little bit over 1,000 square foot.
Wow.
But they don't feel small because I raised the ceiling. Yeah, they're very, very efficient. And I'm in there like making sure I'm the one to actually lace out the plan and just get my draftsman to make it happen, But yeah, like very efficient, build these things. Like I that 5-bedroom I built up, I think under 400 square feet. I have 400,000. Yeah, and it's optimized. I'm getting about, I think, 8,100 a month on it.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
so
it's more than 2% rule.
No, it's insane. So can you help demystify SB9 a little bit? It's something I think a lot of people have heard of, but so many people have gotten, disqualified from it, I think. So how do you make SB9 work? Hey guys, if you're a business owner, high income earner, or investor who's been thinking about getting into real estate development but don't have the time to manage the process, this is for you. My company partners with people like you to help unlock the potential of your properties or even source and manage new small scale development projects. We manage hundreds of ADUs and infill development projects across Southern California, and our team knows how to simplify the process so you can benefit from the upside without managing contractors, permits, or design headaches. Whether you want to develop your own property, explore ways to offset taxes, or just learn how the development model works, head to thebuildernation.com/partner. That's thebuildernation.com/partner and see how we can help you build more with the same 24 hours. Now back to the show.
All right, so SB9, oh gosh, it's a big mystery. I just spoke about this. When did I speak about this? 2 days ago. I got invited to speak at Tatch Nguyen's big event here in SoCal, Huntington Beach, and I spoke at the breakout session about SB9. A lot of people get confused about SB9. 9 is, I don't know, it's actually the designation of the unit itself, not necessarily the strategy, not necessarily a lot split. People get that confused. They think SB9, oh, you got to do a lot split. You don't. A lot split is just an option for you to split a lot using an SB9 lot split. Because if you have the intention of selling half the parcel with an SB9 unit, then you can do a lot split. But to me, the way it's really defined is SB9 is just a second single family home on a parcel, and it's designated as SB9 structure versus an ADU structure. For all intents and purposes, it's the same freaking structure. It's just the way they designate it. The big difference is over here in LA, especially, is with an ADU, valuation is kind of tricky. It's a gamble, whether I build something over, that's maybe I spent $350,000, I might only get $250,000 max on it on appraisal. And the GLA, which is the gross living area, doesn't even count. So yeah, but with an SB9 unit, it's from an appraisal standpoint, it's being looked at as a second single family, by which everything counts. You get the full value of it.
Okay, so does SB9, if you're not doing the lot split, require owner occupancy still? No, so
you don't do the lot split. If you don't do the lot split, you don't eat into your FAR, which is your floor area ratio, which is very important. And then also by not doing the lot split, you buy yourself more time, because when you lot split, there's a whole layer of just time.
Yeah.
To what purpose? For you to sell? I don't plan on selling anyway. I'll get more value by doing a SB9 unit, a main house SB9 unit, and attaching a third ADU to it. So you have a triplex in the front and then 2 ADUs in the back. Now you got 5 units.
Mm.
So from a valuation standpoint, now you got 5 units, it triggers commercial underwriting. So my exit would be at a much higher valuation, which I can then refinance and burn it out. Meanwhile,
That
if I do
makes
when I do a 104 unit, guess what? It's based on 4 units. So there's not too many 4 units. And if they are, they're like, you're going to have low valuation.
interesting. So yeah, so that's interesting because my strategy is kind of focused around the 4 unit calls or the 4 unit properties because they're still based on comps. But you're saying the other way. So you think that 5+ is actually the better way to get a
Dude,
higher
I'll give you an
valuation.
example. I have a 4 unit. I rebuilt the 4th unit and then also added an ADU in the back. Now I got 5, right? I'm actually going through this right now because I'm trying to refinance this thing. So I went through 2 different brokers, right? 2 different appraisals. First appraisal, I appraised it for 4 units plus an ADU. Valuation came out to 2.1 because based on comps, and that's as far as they can take it. As a 5 unit, however, it appraised at 2.85. The only difference is the 2-bedroom ADU in the back.
That's a $600,000 ADU or $700,000
Right.
ADU.
Right. Because it triggered commercial underwriting.
Crazy. So that's the strategy. So can you like in a nutshell explain the SB9 strategy that gets you 5 units and how people can actually do it?
So far, Los Angeles, city of Los Angeles, is the most flexible with this. So it's really just building a triplex in the front, or triplex in the front or triplex in the back, whichever. But you basically package the main house and attach a SB9 unit to it, and then another ADU attached to it. So you got 3 units attached, and then you can get 2 detached ADUs in the back.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's insane.
But
that's awesome.
Obviously, you need a parcel large enough for that.
Mhm.
At this point, I'm seeing like 10,000 square foot lots is the most minimum for it.
Got
At
it.
least
That makes
to
sense.
have the most meaningful thing. But those are harder to find, to be honest. And then from an exit standpoint, you also have to make sure, like, I like the burst strategy, so I'm always aiming for 100% recapture of everything I put in.
Mm.
So it's harder to find those lots, and it's harder to make sure your exit value and your exit rents match up. Well, I'm, at this point, they exist. Just it's just a matter of how much money you want to leave in the project.
Right.
I'm
No, that
greedy, dude. I want all my money out. So it's just,
No, I mean,
I'm being picky at this point.
I only know one other person that is successfully doing burrs in this Southern California market. So I think that that's an easy way, or not an easy way, but that's a way to actually get a burr to pencil and to be able to execute fully. So I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yep.
Dude, that's awesome. So like going back a little bit to kind of like I want to understand kind of like the mindset and your risk tolerance going through from transitioning from your job as a product developer into your entrepreneurial journey, but then like take me through kind of the mindset shifts from that to those and then into real estate and like how did that work? How did you actually transition from one to the other?
Well, to be quite honest, it wasn't much of a transition. It was more a clarity in which one to focus. Because I actually started in real estate. Like, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when it first came out in 1999. And I read that book because there's an Asian guy in the freaking front cover. And I'm like, I got to read this because he looks like my dad, So I read it and I'm like, oh, okay. And I actually read Cash Flow Quadrant first, to be honest. Someone gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it kind of sat on my shelf a little bit until Cash Flow Quadrant came. And I'm like, oh, this is the second time someone sent me this book. It must be good. And I read it. And right off the bat, man, I was like, oh my gosh, this just kind of blew my mind. This is like revelation for me, especially being a college dropout, didn't know what to do. And I'm like, wow, this is definitely something that is feasible for me. So I knew my end game was always real estate. And I like I said, I quickly realized I couldn't afford it. And so I bought my first property, and then 3 house hacked that. At the time, they were giving away loans, subprime. Like, I knew I couldn't afford it. I actually house hacked it by accident. I just brought my girlfriend in at the time, and she's actually my wife now, but told her, like, who else can we bring in here to lease the room so I could afford this place and keep it? brought in her sister, brought in my brother, brought in a couple of friends. Like, next thing you know, like, all right, wow, I'm actually not paying mortgage at this point.
It's a party house.
And so, yeah, and then like after a couple of years, like, and at this point, I still have my W-2, and bought another house, leveraged the equity on that, bought another house. This time bought a 6-bedroom house. I'm like, all right, let's bring the gang over. And we just kind of brought more people in and leased the other one to a family. I'm like, all right, we're doing this. And then that's when I realized, okay, how do I scale this? And, my wife became a realtor. I, took the test as well. I could have gotten my license, which I did, but I just never hung it, never kept it. And I realized then, like, okay, you be the realtor. We'll flip houses on the side. Meanwhile, I'm building this, I'm building my skill set in this business on the creatives. And eventually, because I knew at that point, like, I want to start a company like this. And after a few years, this is before 2008, after a few years, I was running that company for the CEO who eventually became my mentor in that business. And when he sold that business, he laid me off. This is around 2008. I gave me severance pay and I started my own business. And so at that point, I started making a lot more money, and that's about the time real estate crashed. So me and my wife were just picking up REOs left and right, rehabbing them. I had my little crew on the side. So I was, fixing houses. Like, it was just crazy, man. I had like 2 or 3 businesses at that point.
How do you manage all of that? I mean, like, what does the structure of something like that look like? And how do you, you're one person, right? How do you leverage other people and everything else?
Honestly, I don't even know how I made it work, man. I was young. I was crazy. I was like, I had nothing to lose. I just knew in my mind, like, I need to build the skill set. Somehow I realized there's 4 things I need to chase that makes success. I call it my grit system. Growth is G. G stands for growth. Growth is anything that accelerates my skill set, my knowledge base, my education. R is resources. So I focus on resources, whatever that term is, whether that's money or whatever, resources. And then I is influence, which I would call that more relationship based, relationship, leverage, anything like that. And T is time. Those are 4 things I chase after, because I know if one is higher than the other, one will bring the other ones up. Like, skill set would find me relationship. Relationship will find me resources. And all of this will find me time. And if I have time, guess what? I have more time to get more resources. Yeah, exactly. So those are things I've always chased. I've never actually really chased money. I've always chased anything outside of money, because I knew that the byproducts always, for some reason, money will follow once you have all these 4.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. I think that, a lot of people worry about it's kind of like starting with the solution in mind, right? Like, the solution is making money, right? But it's the problem is you lack the resources, you lack the time, you lack the knowledge or whatever, right? So by solving the problem, not reaching for a solution, you actually, I think, make significantly more money. So that's, that makes a lot of sense. So, through your journey for the $60 million portfolio you have, what was like the hockey stick, right? Like, I know that obviously buying the REO is probably, set off and stuff a little bit, but what really got you to like where you're at right now? Like, what
honestly, I'll tell you, man, I feel like I kind of cheated a little bit. I think the hockey stick is just buying in California, just being able to, this is one thing I've learned, is like just buying and holding in a state that appreciates and accelerates the appreciation so freaking rapidly. That's like, I realized, like, people are chasing cash flow, but you can't outperform appreciation. And people talk a lot about like, cash flow this, dude, I will tell you right now, I invest in many parts of the country. I am selling most of my properties right now out of state, just so I can reinvest everything back in California. Because, man, it's crazy. Like, my first house that I bought, 2003, I bought it for $300,000. I didn't do anything to it. That's a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom house on title. It's actually 3-bedroom. I haven't done anything to it much since I actually lived there. It's worth $1.1 million now. I haven't done anything. And then this house that I live in, I bought this in 2009, bought this REO, bought it for 400,000, fixed it then. It's worth 2.5 million right now. It's crazy. So what I've
But the
realized is like,
legislation. But the legislation.
I don't care about that, man. To be honest, what's the legislation? Rent control? Okay, well, let's talk about that. Rent control to me is what? I think a rent control is actually a good thing for investors and developers in this area because it's a freaking moat. It's a moat, man. Like what I've realized is, man, the harder it is to do, the more opportunity there is. The richest are in the niches. You know, California is hard, but if you can operate here, man, you figured this place out. You know how to operate here. You're gonna be untouchable.
That makes so much sense. So in California, doing real estate development and then leveraging co-living and renting by the room.
Yeah,
all
just
three are probably arguably the hardest things to do in real estate.
Just optimize, man. And honestly, what I love about it is like, you know, I love pushing my envelope, right? I love trailblazing because you have no competition when you do that, you know, but you are there to figure it out. And people think you're crazy until you get it done. And they're like, wow, Alvin, can you teach me? And to a point where now my lenders are like asking me like, hey, you know, and I'm starting to get my lenders like, can you create a product for me for this purpose?
Right. Yeah. You're the problem they're trying to solve.
Yeah. So they, you know, and at the same time, like, you know, and, you know, if we start teaching people how to do this stuff, it's, you know, it'll be better for them. Like, hey, if you create this product, you bring some students to you. It's just leverage, man.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. I think that's one of the best things. I mean, I hear people, you know, people talk about it all the time and they're joking about it, but I think that, you know, if you're in a market that doesn't cash flow well, if you can force the appreciation and then get crafty on how you're cash flowing it, you've now solved the problems with that market. And now you have the opportunity.
I mean, cash flow is tricky, right? Sorry if my phone's ringing here.
Oh, you're good.
But hopefully, you know, you can't hear this on your thing. Yeah, so cash flow to me is funny, right? Because sure, it wouldn't cash flow for your normal rent, right? So you got to start looking at this as a product, right? Who is my end user, right? So am I focused on the long-term tenant? No, I build product now. I build my portfolio based on the type of consumers or even renters I want. I know, like, okay, I kind of narrowed it down. I want tenants who would only stay here maybe two to 3 years at a time. That way I'm always on market rent. So what are those people? So, okay, I want roommates because they'll fight. One will leave, and guess what? I have to replace them, and it's not hard to replace, you know? And so what are they? Students, you know, look, the students are great because, you know, the parents are also on the lease. And I like that a lot. And 2 to 3 years from now, you know, I'm always constantly market rent. I love the idea of co-living. That co-living to me is renting by the room. For those of you guys that don't know what co-living is, basically renting by the room, you have separate leases for every single bedroom or you would say tenants. I really like that. And that opens up a whole set of different variations of it. You know, you got your professionals, you got assisted living is a form of co-living. And then when I got into assisted living direction, I'm like, wow, even this whole thing about assisted living is like breaks off into so many different levels. There's one for the elderly, there's one for the adults, there's one for the kids. And then the more I explore this direction, I realize I'm just building the same freaking structure, same product. You know, if I build something that's, you know, that has its own separate bathroom, separate exit, that can work for all these different strategies, exit strategies. And, you know, you got like what's called THP, which is transitional home programs. This is like kids that have grown foster care. They're now wards of the state. So they're like 18 to about 24 years old. You can house those people. You know, you got recuperative care, which is basically Section 8 people that go to, not even Section 8, but let's just say low income, that go to, you know, get medical treatment and they need a place for recovery. And you got, man, it's just opens up to so many different variables, so different variations of this stuff. You got sober
Yeah.
living as well. Like it's just so crazy.
Right. So many. So do you manage the portfolio yourself? Because I know that not many people offer property management for Rent by the Room.
Right now, we're managing it ourselves. We, like we have maybe 4 or 5 homes that are student housing. Yeah, 4 or 5 homes student housing. We have a couple of co-living professionals. Yeah, we're doing it ourselves. I mean, honestly, my whole game right now is like, how do I have the least amount of units, but with a optimized cash flow?
Hmm. Okay. And so, if somebody was doing that, right, or somebody had a property that they have been renting to long term forever and they want to look at transitioning that, how do you do that without like losing your mind?
Well, let's just say it is a business. Okay, if you're not up for the active portion of it, then stay in your lane. I just want to call that out. But to me, it's like I like the hard stuff because the hard stuff is where the money is. It's just really creating that system in place. I mean, there's definitely systems and processes, and understand that you're running a business. But you know what? Real estate is a slow game. Real estate is not really a cash flow game, in my opinion, unless you actually put a business on top. At least
Mm.
not right now. And I know, like, people have this sort of, they've been sold the idea of like, oh, cash flow here, cash flow there, but you're not going to do that right now. It doesn't quite work that way. People will quickly realize, wow, I'd rather start a business to actually generate the revenue that I really need versus doing it through real estate. But
That's
what I
so
realize
good.
is like,
That's
but what
so
I've
good.
realized is like, I want to be able to marry 2 things. I want to marry the real estate and put a business on top,
That's
because
so good.
that would allow me to look. Real estate is very simple. Okay, you buy and you hold. That's it. How do you get wealthy? You buy and you hold. You asked me earlier how to get to where I am. It's because I freaking bought, I held, and I leveraged that. I just figured out a way to keep the property long enough to where appreciation caught up, and now I'm playing with house money, literally.
Yeah.
So that's how I do it now. Like, I realize the equity game is so much more powerful because your equity can buy your cash flow. You just got to wait. And how do you wait? You just figure out a way to keep the freaking property. How do you keep the property? You put a business on top, whatever it takes to keep it.
Yeah.
And
No,
now
that
you start going to the idea of putting a business. Now you start thinking, well, what kind of business should it be? Well, where's the highest revenue generating business I can put in here? As for me right now, it's assisted living. For assisted living, the elderly, I can get at the very minimum, the one I'm building right now, 10,000 per bedroom per month.
that's
So I'm like,
wild.
hey,
Can you go just a little bit in detail, like high level, like what does that actually look like as a business? Like how's that structure?
what I'm doing right now is a non-medical model, which most people think you need a nurse. You don't. You just need caregivers. Basically, caregivers that are, think of it as like babysitting old people,
Mm.
handling them, feeding them, making sure their medicines are taken, giving them a bath, taking them for walks, things like that. It's just, what it is you can go 2 models, which is, one is you going through insurance, or you do something called private pay, which people pay directly. I'm going toward private pay, and I'm actually tackling luxury model, which is I'm doing more expensive houses because of my Airbnb background. We do that anyway. Like, we know how to create that experience. So we're building luxury models where we have bathrooms for every bedroom, and every bedroom has an exit, so we can go all the way to end of life. So the idea is like to just keep them there, until they're, to their, I guess, end of life, and making sure that they're happy and well taken care of. But from a structure standpoint, you need an operator, what's called a administrator, to get a license. And then once you have the facility license, then you're good. You just run the business. You have, a certain ratio of caregivers for residents. That's what they're called. And then you basically, I think the revenue is basically about 30 to 35% margin. in this business. Yep, that's kind of the goal.
Okay.
Yeah, I got 3 of these being launched right now. I got 3 in licensing. I'm actually a certified administrator, so I
Wow.
can run the business. I actually, I took a course, and because I want to learn it. I want to understand it. I want to run the business. And
Right. So would you, I mean, if somebody has a house, right, like they're sitting on a 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom house in Southern California, is this something that is worth it for them to try to do, or not unless you're scaling?
4 bedrooms not adequate enough, in my opinion. You need at least a 6 bedroom.
Okay.
You don't want shared. You start getting into low income.
Mm.
And also just a lot more nuanced in terms of the property itself. It's better fit for a single story. You can't just turn in 4 bedrooms. It's better for you to do single story. There is a maximum of 6 residents per facility by right in California. So anytime you go beyond that, you have to get what's called conditional use permit, which triggers a whole bunch of stuff. I'm actually dealing with something like that now.
Oh man.
Because I've learned how to build these things now, and I realize, wow, there's an opportunity here. Number one, from a construction standpoint, no one's building these things. From a product development standpoint, like I can build these things, get them licensed, sell them. That's one direction. Master lease them is another direction, or operate them. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. But there's so many exits on this thing, and I'm getting actually ready to like build bigger ones with the conditional use permits in place.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So that's going to go into my last question that I have for you is, can you describe your Swiss Army house model?
Ooh, Swiss Army house. Again, like I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, which is, okay, the concept is this. A lot of people looking at commercial real estate because you can put businesses on top, right? Different exits on that commercial property, whatever, retail, whatever, I started thinking, well, why can't I do that with single family? Or can I do that with single family? Because they're everywhere. I'm like, sure I can. Why can't I? So I'm like, okay, if I take a single family, what kind of business I put on top? So to me, again, from a product development standpoint, I'm just looking at, okay, what product can I build with multi-exits? That's all it is. I can short-term rental this, I can mid-term rental this, can turn this to co-living strategies, i.e., student housing or facilities or whatever, right? Perfect example. I took a single family house, used to be I think it was 2 or 3 bedrooms on a 14,000 square foot lot, by the way. And I quickly saw like, oh, this can be an assisted living facility. Mind you, that idea was just in my head just 2 or 3 days before that. I didn't know anything about assisted living, but I knew that looked the part. I'm like, let me just buy this thing. And I realized, okay, well, I'm going to turn this into 7 bedrooms, 7.5 bathrooms, which I did. And right now I'm in licensing stage. And I knew it's going to take about 5 to 7 months for me to get licensed. So what I do in the meantime, I Airbnb this thing. I got a short-term rental permit for it. That way, I can actually BRRRR it out. So I bought this for 1.6 because of all the changes and updates. And really, I even added square footage to this. It's now a 3,500 square foot house, 7 bedroom, 7.5 bathroom. This thing just appraised for 3.6. And so in the area, if I Airbnb this, I'm going to hit the threshold and be able to DSCR it with a 30-year fixed 10-year interest only in the beginning.
Jeez.
And so I cashed out, I got all my money out. And when I put my assisted living in there in a few months, hopefully, and in licensing now, I'm forced to cash flow even more.
That's so smart. So just finding properties with multiple exit strategies. And
yeah, that's what it is. Swiss Army, what tool can I use now to keep this property is really the concept there.
I love
short
that,
term, midterm, I can make it into a, peer space kind of thing, like treatment center. I can turn it into treatment center too, like detox. I could turn it into anything.
That's so smart, man. There's so many nuggets in there because you're doing so many different strategies, but the concept is the same. You're buying and holding real estate. That's it.
Buying and holding real estate, man. And I explore all these different exits only because I knew, not every property can work for every location. But once I have I guess a process for them, and I have some processes for certain things in place, so I know how some certain strategies work, and just kind of build a team around that. So I could always scale in different directions here, but for me right now, I'm still in R&D phase, which is I'm trying to research and develop which is the most optimized direction. But at some point, I'm probably gonna go in all different directions here and scale multiple ways, to be honest.
Wow.
Because what I'm realizing is like, man, single families are everywhere. Opportunities everywhere. It's just a matter of how you look at them.
I love that, man. Dude, if people want to follow what you're doing and which directions you go, man, how can they get a hold of you, and how can they follow along?
Well, I'm all over social media now, I think. You can find me at Alvinize, ALVINIZED. I think I'm on everywhere. Maybe on YouTube. I can't remember. My team handles it.
I like that. That's a good answer. Your team handles it. That's a great answer. Well, cool, man. Dude, I appreciate you coming on, dropping a whole bunch of information for everyone. And I really like you demystifying the Southern California market for sure. So appreciate you coming on, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. That's it for this episode of the Builder Nation podcast. If it gave you something to think about, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's leveling up. Until next time, keep building.